Back in 2014, Big Crit released the song Mount Olympus, which was his response to the conversation stirred up around Kendrick's Control verse. Not only was this response incredibly unique based on it not being rapped over the Control beat like many others did, or it being released months after everything had settled down, but also because Big Crit probably had the most interesting perspective out of everyone that had something to say about it. He raps on the track in a very resentful way towards the audience, saying how ironic it is that people now consider him a lyricist after Kendrick mentioned his name, and how futile and misunderstood the idea of competition in rap can be sometimes. The conversation around who is the best rapper or who is the greatest rapper of all time will forever be a debate within the realm of hip hop, as it is virtually impossible for the entire culture to come to a unanimous decision on one person to give that title to for various reasons. Even the discussion around what is a lyricist isn't exactly black and white either. However, I do think that there is a clear difference between being the best versus being the greatest. To be the best means that you can outperform everyone else in your field at the highest degree of excellence, and to be the greatest means that the sum of your work produced through your performances is worth more than everyone else in your field. In the case of rap, you may be able to look at King Lo's freestyle for 20 minutes straight and say to yourself that this is one of the best displays of rapping ability you've ever seen, but for as long as I've been a rap fan, I've never seen King Los's name mentioned in anyone's top 5, 10, etc. Nor have I seen any of his albums mentioned on any form of list. Despite how lyrically gifted he is and how competent he can be in the realm of battle rap, he has never been involved in any major rap conversations with most people's favorites. Speaking of people's favorites, at the top of the year, one of my favorites of the 2010s, Joey Badass, decided to invoke Jay-Z's Too Much West Coast Dick Licking bar as a way to catch the attention of California rappers, specifically Kendrick Lamar it seems. This caused a slew of West Coast rappers to take shots back at him, namely Ray Vaughn and Daylight. Fast forward a few subliminals and a Red Bull cypher later, Joey finally calls out Daylight and Ray Vaughn directly, which prompts a battle to commence where multiple West Coast and New York rappers end up jumping in to say their piece. In the end, most people see Joey as the winner coming out on top of all of this due to how well he handled himself during the ordeal. However, in the end, there are some people within the space who now pose the question, what was this all for? Competition in rap can be productive and entertaining for the fans overall, but what really was Joey's intended purpose for starting all of this in the first place? I must admit, as a fan of his, I did feel a bit gaslit in the beginning of all this, since he claimed that the Ruler's Back was a call to action to New York. But then the questions arises, why did you need to aim at the West Coast in order to do that? In the Red Bull cypher, he said, this ain't no East versus West, I just think that I'm the best. So then it wasn't about New York. He just wanted to create a moment to big up himself. That's the side I'm leaning on right now, because the way people are positioning this battle is Joey versus the West Coast. CJ Fly, Loaded Lux, Kai Cash, or any other New York MCs that jumped in aren't really getting credit for being named as winners in this battle royale. It's just Joey. In the Ruler's Back, he said, it's clear who the heir apparent king of NY. So does this situation solidify his position on that throne? Prior to this whole thing starting, I had people telling me that Rock Marciano and Rome Streets surpassed Joey in rank when it came to who's more notable and who's better. I feel like I'm left now with more questions than answers at this point. What really prompted me to start all of this writing and rambling was this recent topic of discussion that came up about whether or not Kendrick should respond, owes a response, or has to respond to Joey, since he seems to have bested the opposition from the West Coast and mentioned him on all of his diss tracks. The simple answer I have to this question is no. Kendrick doesn't have to do anything at this point in his career as far as I'm concerned. Not only because of the resume he's built for himself over these past 15 years, but because of what he did last year. See, I'm not one of these rap fans that like to judge artists based on how many number ones they have, albums they've sold, Grammys they've won, tickets they've sold, money they've made, none of that. I leave all of the streaming numbers, pocket watching, and chart counting to the stands. Shout out to you weirdos. I rank Kendrick at the top of his generation because of his discography, skill set, longevity, impact, cultural touchstones, those type of things within hip hop. Kendrick is not above rapping. He's not. But acting as if he's obligated to respond to this, or that it would be a slight against his record if he doesn't, is ridiculous. The only reasonable doubt that has existed in Kendrick's case for being number one for almost his entire mainstream career has been the infamous myth that is the Big Three. I've always hated this whole Big Three conversation between Kendrick, Cole, and Drake for various reasons. I've always thought that it was a popularity contest instead of a legit rap conversation on who's the greatest of the new generation. And now I know for a fact that this is the case because if it was about rap, Drake would have been disqualified from the discussion since 2015. So you could only imagine how joyed I was to hear like that and see Kendrick put this conversation to rest one apology and wop at a time. Even in that instance, he didn't need to diss Cole and Drake, but calling them to the floor after all these years of claiming who's the greatest gave him the opportunity to clear the board, and that's exactly what he did. Outside of those two, there are no other rappers within the last 10 years that have been in conversation with Kendrick. Jay Electronica had his gripes, but his career never amounted to anything for it to matter. And Big Sean has been getting overshadowed by Kendrick every time they cross paths. These are the artists who hip hop have tried to match up against him on his upward progression to legendary status, and he surpassed all of them. But you know whose name has never been in that conversation with Kendrick? Joey Badass. Joey Badass's response to Control was just another drop in the bucket in the ocean of MCs that had something to say on wax about Kendrick. You cannot find Joey's name mentioned in the same breath as Kendrick by the majority of rap fans anywhere or anytime else. As a day one Joey Badass fan, I simply cannot take these opinions seriously because these people never held him in this position prior. Just like how Crit felt underrated prior to the Control verse. This is where the idea of Mount Olympus comes into play, because now that he has people's attention and has seemingly bested Ray Vaughn and Daylight in this arena, does this now put him in the same conversation as Kendrick Lamar? Would beating Kendrick Lamar in a battle put his name in that top spot? I personally don't think so. When Pusha T bested Drake in their battle, the discussion around him did not change over the years. Neither did Drake's position in this whole Big Three conversation, another reason why I never took that title seriously. The fact of the matter is that while hip-hop is a sport and competition is great to see, there are other ways to compete within the culture as well. Especially if you want to be in the same spot as a Kendrick Lamar, which again is not being considered the best, but being considered the greatest, or at least one of the greatest. See, when New York was complaining about the South dominating the radio and not being real lyricists, T.I., Luda, Jeezy, no one from over there decided to throw shots back on wax. They ignored it and continued to make hits until New York started sounding like them. From A$AP Rocky to Designer, it became obvious that the South's dominance in the mainstream was starting to change the way rappers from New York approach their music. They didn't dominate because they were the best at rapping, but because they were great at what they did. The fact of the matter is that the West Coast did Joey a favor by even entertaining this battle in the first place, because they already have the ball right now when it comes to mainstream attention. The momentum Kendrick created from the battle to the pop out to GNX gave the West Coast an opportunity to shine and possibly dominate the sound of mainstream rap. Guys like AZ, Chike, and Hita J3 aren't known for being lyricists. They make slaps and bops. Word to DJ Head. They gain nothing from going back and forth with Joey. Similarly, Joey going back and forth with the West Coast does not put him in the same conversation as Kendrick, because battling is not what made him the greatest. It was his career. If you were to compare Kendrick's career to a Christmas tree, then the battle of the big three would probably be the shining star on top of it. But it is not the culmination of his entire tree. I only say that because it's been years in the making. It's arguably the greatest rap battle in hip hop history, or at least the biggest. And it pushed Kendrick to be the biggest he's been in his career, thus far. Most battles aren't like that. I would never call Nas beating Jay-Z the shining star in his career. That would probably be Illmatic. The battle for him was like another line of lights around his tree. There are artists who are better at rapping or singing than some of the greats, but they're not part of the conversation because they can't make better music or leave an impact in their field. Kendrick may not be the best lyricist to ever rap, but his resume within hip hop is unmatched by anyone else in his generation, and puts him in a conversation you can't reach by freestyling for 20 minutes straight or winning a rap battle. New York has been so obsessed with the idea of being the mecca of hip hop and being the best lyricist that they forgot what it actually takes to make an impact and capture the ear of the culture today. Kendrick's Control verse would not have had the impact it did if he didn't just drop Good Kid, Mad City a year prior. Even though Joey is in my post-2010s top 3, the gap between him and Kendrick is very wide right now. While they may be closely matched in longevity and skill, Kendrick's discography and cultural touchpoints have far exceeded Joey's. You can definitely add this moment between the West and New York to his resume, but the work doesn't stop here. Are these same people who are calling for Kendrick to come outside again gonna listen to a Joey album after this is all said and done? I highly doubt it. Let Joey celebrate the masterful display he put on in this whole thing and continue to progress his career to new heights. Muhammad Ali isn't considered the greatest of all time because he never lost a match or was the best puncher. It was his showmanship and in and outside the ring. He meant something to people. Maybe, somewhere down the line, Joey versus Kendrick might make sense, but for now, if I'm being really honest, it doesn't. And it probably never will.
New York artists who's like, you guys consider New York and that y'all do support, they don't get the support elsewhere. My point is though, like the way my whole career was, I blew up outside and then the city started messing with me and everything. Everybody else who blows up in the city are not as big outside. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no diss, but I just think that's an interesting, point to bring up.
I think
and
every
everything
market has their market
what I
artist.
want to say is, present day New York City, you know what I'm saying? The two artists who are the biggest in New York City right now, in my opinion, worldwide, is A$AP Rocky and myself. Nobody takes this shit around the world like we do and bring it back. Nobody can do it. I'm talking about career. I'm like years in the game, career. Like straight up longevity. That's what I'm talking about. And we probably get played the least, me and him.
So you talking about
Because
like an
I think
artist
the
like
New
Young
York-
M.A. don't make records outside of New York, or artists
No,
like A
no, no.
Boogie
Young
don't
M.A.'s
make,
record blew up outside of New York,
that-
but I'm
ooh.
saying
but
she's
like a Dave East, for example.
right.
You know, we ride Dave East, we play Dave East.
Yeah.
Do you say Dave East is one of those artists that don't get played out in New York?
I won't say that any of them don't get played out of New York, but not as much as they get played in New York, and that's beautiful. Like that's what I want to keep influencing. You know what I'm saying? It like I want everybody to grow who's from New York. I want everybody to succeed. But I just think that it's weird with me, like how I get more support everywhere else and not in New York. You know what I'm saying? And in my opinion, like I've been pushing like probably like the hardest, you know what I mean? Like in my humble opinion, honestly, like, you know, bringing it around the world and back.
Let's talk about Fetty Wap. He was one of those artists that got played outside of New York. Heavy.
Yeah, because, you know, he had super big hit records that are undeniable, playing in every club and every radio station. Yeah, that's why. But, you know, and I'm not trying to play him or, you know, discredit him in any way, but how much albums did he sell? Right. How much albums are these people selling though? You know what I'm saying? Like I sell more albums than them all. And I sell more albums than them all, excluding Rocky. Me and him though.